So we are about to hit 2023, literally in almost 30 days. And I know I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions, but I have one intention that I would like you to set for 2023, and that is to be as prosperous and abundant as you've ever been in your entire life in this new magical year of 2023. How, you ask? Well, stay tuned. We're getting started right now. Hey y'all, I'm Debbie Dobbins. I'm your host for this episode of Wichita Falls. And today I want to talk about what 2023 is going to look like for you. I have been so excited for 2022 to be concluded, to be honest with you, because I'm exhausted. We've just come out of the two of the most crazy years I've ever experienced in real estate and mortgage, and I've been doing this for over 3 decades. That being said, with the horizon of a slower, more normal market, interest rates poised to come down again, there are so many opportunities to begin to be an investor in real estate. So before you click off, this is not one of those get rich quick videos. This is not one of those crazy ones where it says,
I'm going to teach you how to make millions of dollars in 4 days.
And on other people's money.
That's suspicious.
Now, I am going to talk about some of those elements, and I'm going to be very quick about it because I would like to make this a little more expanded series. I want to whet your beak a little bit for what you have as potential and possibility in investing in your future, in your family's wealth, generational wealth, and continuing to build something that's so stable for yourself. And before you say real estate's not stable, then you might want to click this video off, because I've heard that for 30 years now. And frankly, other than our little 2008 boom bubble, real estate has just been like this for years and years and years and years. It's just one of the most stable investments. I'll go toe to toe with anybody about stocks and bonds, cryptocurrency, and all of that stuff. There's lots of things going on in the world. I promise you. I watch the economic reports every day, and it's so frankly boring sometimes. But the fact is that lots of things are going on in the world. They're impacting you that you have no control over. I don't know, right now as we're speaking, as I'm sharing this video, railroad workers that are in a union are about to go on strike. Do you know what that's going to do to your everyday life?
What?
Holy smokes. You thought inflation was bad now. You thought a supply chain issue was bad now. So let's not talk about all that negative stuff. Let's talk about how you mitigate that by being an investor in your own legacy. So I'm going to talk about real estate. I'm going to talk about the 5 different ways to invest in real estate really quickly, give you an overview, and then I'll break it down in subsequent videos for each category. And so I actually want to say this to the millennials out there. They've done a survey. They've done a survey for millennials that is evidencing that millennials finally entered the housing market, which I've talked about that several times, that they recognize, millennials are not, they're nothing to be reckoned with if they aren't just paying attention, a lot of them. Just like every other generation that we've ever had, you've got groups of generations that pay attention to things. And the millennials have decided that real estate is a wealth building opportunity. Where have I heard that before? But the fact is that because it's such a wealth building opportunity, some of them are actually investing in investment property and renting, because they want the best of both worlds. They want the investment of real estate, and they want to live in a loft in, who knows where, Houston or Denver. But the fact of the matter is no matter how you begin. I'm sort of old school, so my philosophy was always buy a home for yourself, live in it, get in for that low amount down, 3%, get in a good interest rate that's not an investment rate, live in it for a little bit, a year or two, and then rent it out. That's a good foundational way to start building wealth in real estate. However, there's so many other ways now. And so the first way that people find that they can make money in real estate fairly easily, this is not me personally, my cup of tea is flipping, so you may have noticed that as I do these videos, but it's called wholesaling. Now, what does that even mean? If you've never even heard the term, think of it as going to let's say you went to a estate sale and you bought some gadgets. I don't know, maybe you bought farm equipment or you bought tchotchkes that, particular people like, and you saw the value in it, right? And you either had a store that you could take those items and resell them in a little boutique or a tool shop, or you went to a flea market, or you held some sort of sale, a garage sale in your yard. So basically, wholesaling is buying something for a lower value than you can ultimately retail it for, and then selling it for a retail value. That's the working definition of if you will, of wholesaling. Well, people do that with real estate. Now, wholesaling actually has a pretty bad name in the industry as far as I'm concerned, because there's a lot of people out there that are using wholesaling to scam people. So if you're on the receiving end, I'd say kind of stay away from that. But you can be a wholesaler. So what does that mean for you? You go out, you find a piece of property generally, and this is not, all of these strategies are just not as simple as doing them. You actually have to put some effort into them. That I will say, that a lot of videos will tell you, you can do this and it's so quick and it's so overnight, and I'm sure there's plenty of overnight successes. And for the most part, those are isolated incidences. But let's just use wholesaling as an example. You find a person that's in distress that needs to sell their property. Either they're about to go into foreclosure, their property taxes are not paid, they may be sold on the courthouse steps, person in their family that owned it died and they need to move it as an estate sale. There's a whole lot of different reasons why people are distressed. You take this property that the seller is in distress of some type, you're going to help them out. And you get it into a contract that's for cash with the ultimate decision to sell it or wholesale it to an investor, because there's lots of investors that are looking for it out there. Now, all of these categories that I'm going to share with you have a special equation to them. So you don't just go out and find property and then hope you can turn it around and wholesale it. And there's also some strategies of making sure that you don't have to be committed to purchasing that property using the legal laws in each state, Texas being an option period, so that you're not stuck on the hook with buying this for cash when you don't have any cash. So basically the strategy is using other people's money by you finding the property. So in other words, let's say you went to the estate sale, you found a special kind of piece of jewelry that you knew was worth this much money. You bought it for, $1.50. You knew you could sell it for $40, and you invested in the $1.50. You took it to wherever you're going to sell it, and you sell it for $40. That's the essence of wholesaling, and it works with real estate. And it's a simple process, but it's also fraught with traps that you want to make sure that you know and understand. But think of it this way: even if you find a property that you're going to wholesale it to another investor for $3,000 or $5,000 over what you have it in contract for, that's $3,000 or $5,000 or $20,000 or $70,000, depending on how large the property is, what condition it's in, and how you're able to structure a deal with an investor. So literally, wholesaling is none of your money. It's just you taking your time to find the property and then reselling it before money changes hands to the actual seller, and then move forward. I actually have done probably 3 wholesale deals, but I use my own money because I know what I'm getting into, and I'm not really here to take advantage of people. But the fact of the matter is, it's not taking advantage if you do it with integrity. And each one of these processes that I'm going to talk about, I want you to remember to always stay in integrity and don't try to take advantage of people. So you're going to get a lot farther in life by doing that. So that's wholesaling. The second strategy that is real estate investment is what we call buy and hold. So for those of you that have heard that term, you know that that's basically meaning rental property. But the thing is that a lot of times when people are buying rental property, and anybody that may have bought rental property, you have to pay 20% down with a conventional lender to get that property, because investment property carries a higher risk than owner occupied. If you buy a house that you're going to live in and you apply for a loan, you can get in for as little as 3% down. Well, that's quite a big difference of 17% that you would have to come up with if you're buying investment property. There's a great program called BRRRR. It's BRRRR, and that's buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. And what that system allows you to do is, once again, use other people's money. There's what are called hard money lenders out there that will get you the financing for that property subject to the valuation after you do some rehabbing. So in this particular case, you're not going and buying a duplex or fourplex that's already stunning and ready to go because there's no room for burring in there. There's no room for renovating. So you're going to have to put your 20% down. If you do a BRRRR, you can actually go find what's called a hard money lender. They're very expensive, but they don't require a lot of credit. They don't require a lot of income. What they're looking at is the valuation of the property. So literally you could buy a house for 70% of what its value is and then get the difference of that 30% in that loan to renovate it. And then it's gonna be worth more than that. And then you get a renter in there and then you refinance it based on the income that you will be generating. It's actually a very cool process to help you get a foothold in becoming a real estate investor and having rental income coming in. You know, rental income, I have done rentals for years and years and years, and I choose not to do it anymore because I'm old and I don't want to have to deal with tenants, which is perfectly fine. I've done it plenty, so I feel like I've paid my dues. And at the same time, you can build more wealth by having your tenants pay your mortgage. You're building that wealth, you're building equity. And the last gentleman that I was really, well, actually on another video, I told you he fired me when I got sick. There are not always kind people in the world, but he had an income of over $1 million coming in from all the investment properties that he had invested in and finally paid off all of the loans by himself with those tenants over a 20, 30 year period. You can do that, absolutely. And he had over 100 doors, which means, you know, a door is considered something that is one tenant. You have the ability to invest in your own retirement in exactly that same way. And a BRRRR is a great way to do it. There's also just buying, investing and holding. You just buy a rental property, either a single family residence or a duplex, a triplex, a quadplex. You can do all of those under what's called conventional financing. Once you get over five units plus, it becomes a commercial property, and that's a whole different ball of wax. And that's not what we're talking about on this particular video today. Then our next category is actually my favorite, which is flipping. Now, when you go out to flip a property, basically what you're looking for is, again, probably all of these categories. You're looking for distressed properties. And I don't mean distressed meaning they're falling down. I mean that the owner, the seller, is willing to negotiate in a different way than, say, they put it on the open market with a real estate agent. Generally speaking, you're not going to find most of these deals on the MLS or the multiple listing service or Zillow, which is where Zillow gets their information. I can assure you they do show up from time to time, but other people are looking for them. So it's kind of a race to the finish to get to one of them. You will have to do some legwork to find these properties, but I can assure you they're in your neighborhood. I promise you, they're in your neighborhood, they're in your city, they're in your community. So when you find a flip, that is one of the criteria you want to pay attention to, is looking at what the valuation, what are the comparable sales for those properties in that neighborhood. So just because you find a $5,000 house, and I've said this many, many, many times, it's in a particular area that is not a desirable real estate market, it doesn't matter whether you got it for $5,000 and you put 20 into it or you put 40 into it, and you can't sell it for that because it doesn't demand that price point in that neighborhood. So you have to do your homework and determine that whether or not this particular property is going to be able to be sold once you're done with your rehab, once you're done with your flipping. So a couple of things about a flip is you want to make sure that you understand what the equation is. So I'll explain that on another video. Once you get that equation down and you understand what your price point is, what you can sell the property for, what your carrying costs will be, generally give yourself 90 days to 6 months to do that. You want to absolutely have an amazing contractor so you're not having to redo what you're asking to be done. You make it very simple. You don't go high end on everything, because I've seen many flippers that rehab a property for themselves. Basically, they're looking for a property so that they can turn the bells and whistles that they would want in their house. And frankly, on a flip, you need to make it clean, you need to make it desirable, you need to make it sleek, and more importantly, by the time you get to the end, if you can stage, that's even better. And then take into consideration, there's those carrying costs. You've got your utilities, you've got your insurance, you've got your taxes, you've got your rehab costs, and believe me, there's a budget formula that you can use that's very important as well. And then you have your closing costs. So whatever you paid for the property is not the closing costs. The closing costs are on the back end, or the selling end. So you want to make sure that you build in there a cost for a real estate agent, because I can assure you selling it for sale by owner is not the best way to go, and most people will give up. And you have title insurance, you may have closing costs, a lot of different things that go into actually a flip conclusion and the sale of it directly. So when you do all of this, what you can do is generally make, depending on where you are, and we have a lower cost of living, meaning our housing prices are lower. I don't think I've done a flip in the past 2 years that I didn't make at least $20,000 on. And generally, if you make 30 to 50 on a $150,000 house, that's a pretty darn good return. Yes, you can make more in bigger cities, you can make more with bigger properties, but you also have to come up with the money for the rehab. So again, you can use other people's money. You can do hard money loans for both the purchase price and the rehab costs. Keep in mind though, that adds to your ultimate cost. So if you aren't building that cost in and you're thinking, I'm just going to go get other people's money, meaning a hard money lender or a private investor, sometimes you can basically trip yourself up and then at the end you don't have enough. So there's lots of formulas. I'll share all of those with you on a video that I talk about flips basically. The next type of real estate investment is short-term rentals. One of the greatest things that has come out of the past decade or two are side hustles, are the gig economy, whether it be being an Uber driver, renting out your car, Turo is the name of that company, or Airbnbs. And one thing that's very amazing to me is the transition that people have made when they travel. People would much prefer to be in an Airbnb. Why? Because they feel like they're more at home than they do staying in a hotel. Having been what it called a road warrior for years and years and years and staying in hotels over and over and over and over, I can assure you it is not very comfortable to stay in a hotel. You feel like you are a temporary visitor. And there's lots of hotels out there that have a mini fridge and some of them have a microwave, but believe me, it's not the same as having a kitchen or even a one-bedroom unit where you can sort of feel like you're at home. Well, Airbnbs are a great real estate investment. And so you do the same thing you would do more or less with a BRRRR, very similar, but you're doing short-term rentals now. And so keep in mind that there's another budgeting process that goes into it by purchasing the property, making sure that you have the correct equation so that you're getting the best value. You can rehab it. You will have to furnish it with all of the items that you normally have in a house, which is furniture and kitchen utensils and typically a washer dryer and things like that. But I can assure you what's really cool is that there are so many hacks to finding a way to furnish an entire house. We furnished an entire over 2,000 square foot farm for under $5,000 because there's so many yard sales and estate sales and fabulous things. And, you know, it doesn't matter if everything's matchy-matchy or it looks like it's a town and country magazine because people are there and they want to feel comfortable. So you want to budget all of that in, but there's great resources out there to market your Airbnbs. And depending on where you are, an Airbnb, even here in Wichita Falls, people say, well, what is there to do in Wichita Falls? Why would someone use an Airbnb? Our Airbnbs are full. They're full. And that's because people come here for conventions. People come here for Hotter Than Hell. People come here for holidays. People come here to see their loved ones who have been stationed at Shepherd. They come here as traveling nurses. There's just unlimited amount of people that are actually needing Airbnbs. So you can be on the low end, you can be on the high end. It doesn't matter, but you decide what you want for your Airbnb and how you want to put it together, because I'm telling you, it's one of the most exciting, but then also keep in mind that you have to expense in monthly. You probably make more money than a normal renter month to month. However, you still have to pay for the maintenance of the property. So keep all of those things in mind. The fifth way to invest in real estate, I want to kind of go back to what I was sharing initially, is buying a property. If this is your first opportunity or your second opportunity to buy a primary residence, meaning a house that you're going to live in. So a lot of people think to be a first-time home buyer is literally to be a first-time home buyer. If you pay attention to what makes a first-time home buyer, generally speaking, first-time home buyer assistance programs and all of the different programs that we do as a mortgage company involve the fact that you haven't owned a property in 3 years. That's basically what makes you a first-time home buyer, which is crazy because you can do this over and over and over and over. But let's look at it from the perspective that you're a first-time home buyer and you're going to buy your home to live in, and then you're going to buy a house that you can live in, you can renovate, you can add all of the bells and whistles that you really do love in a house. You're going to plan to stay there for 3 years. You can either rent that house out when you're done, or you can flip it. And another cool thing to do is buy a house that you're going to live in, buy the smallest house in the neighborhood, and add square footage. Over a period of 2 to 3 years, the appreciation in the neighborhood is going to go up. The appreciation from your making your payments is going to go up. And you literally can have a house that you're living in, that you pay the mortgage over your head, that you literally could have bought for $100,000. You got a mortgage payment of under $1,000, and put enough work into it and put some additional square footage, sell it for $200, $250, and make a very nice profit. Now, the good news about that type of profit is that you don't have to pay any capital gains on it. All of the other properties that I've just talked about, there are tax ramifications, and you really want to understand that as you go forward with it. My feeling is just have enough write-offs, and then you won't have to worry about too many taxes. But because you own this property as your primary residence, and you were to sell it and make $150,000 on it, you never have to pay capital gains. So, woohoo, cha-ching. So those are 5 different ways. I'm going to do some videos that expand on that a little bit more, show you some examples of my flips, of my wholesales, of my Airbnb, so that you can get an idea of things that you can do to begin to be prosperous in 2023. And don't think because you don't have money that this is not a possibility or an option for you. I can assure you, if you decide and make the decision that you are going to be a real estate investor and you are going to be prosperous in this magical year of 2023, that it will happen for you. I want you to stay tuned for the next 2 videos. Also, if you'd like to schedule a Zoom meeting with me, in the first comments below, there's a link to do that. I'm happy to share any feedback that you'd like. And at the end of the day, stay tuned for January 1st. Set your intention now. Set your goal now. And as of January 1st, I'm going to give you all of the details and the ins and outs and where the resources are to become a real estate investor. In the meantime, I'm going to do some Christmas videos about what's happening in Wichita Falls. And as I always say, y'all come back now. You hear?